am I completely cooked at the top tier because of my undergraduate GPA? I'm Melody Jones, and I'm the founder of Vantage MBA Admissions Consulting. I'm going to be reviewing real candidate profiles and giving my unfiltered thoughts and feedback. Let's get into it. All right, so age 26, great test score, 770 GMAT with a 3.4. I like the 3 decimal points here, but we're going to call it a 3.4 GPA in business from a top 10 undergrad business school. So the first thing I look at when I meet candidates that either have lower test scores or lower GPAs is to understand, are both sort of objective data points on the lower end, or is one low and one's high? In his case, he absolutely has a higher test score. Is that going to carry him all the way through to a yes? Definitely not. Average GPAs at the M7 are very high. We're talking like 3.7. And so he's a good, few decimal points below that. Now, let's just talk for a couple of minutes about the GPA itself, because I definitely recommend, in his case, likely addressing it, but not necessarily head on. So oftentimes with applicants that have much lower GPAs, like a 3.1 or a 3.2 or even lower than that, you want to go out there like guns blazing, talk, exactly about what happened. A 3.4 isn't necessarily something that you need to excuse unless there was a blip, right? Unless there was one semester of really low grades, or there was one particular subject area that you struggled in that brought down your GPA for that semester, right? So let's just quickly ground ourselves in what that is. He mentioned how he had a 3.7 GPA before getting a job offer his junior year, and then he stopped caring about grades and he tanked his GPA after locking down a great job post-grad. So that's not a good look. Definitely not something that you would want to talk about in your MBA applications. He also mentioned that he was working for a Y Combinator startup senior year as their first sales hire. I think that is what the story is. That is what he should address in an optional essay. And so instead of saying that, I stopped focusing on my grades because I got the job I wanted, I would just recommend talking about you worked for a startup your senior year, you got really excited about it, you got really invested, but unfortunately you weren't the best at managing your time and your grades took a back burner. And of course, that is something that you have now corrected as a young professional who manages all of the different conflicting priorities that you have on your plate. I, again, reference the 770 GMAT in that optional essay. It's not going to be something that they can't see elsewhere in the application, but it can't also hurt to remind them that that test score, which is more recent, is something that will be additional data or be an additional data point against your academic profile. By the way, if you're worried about your GPA capping you in the MBA admissions process, my team put together a guide that answers the question we get the most from MBA applicants, and that's, do I have a chance at the M7 programs? It's free, and it's in the link in the description below. It'll answer that question for you. Let's see where he's been working. So 4 years straight out of undergrad at a big tech firm in tech sales. Interesting. Promoted quickly, recognized nationally as a top performing rep with formal people and project leadership experience managing a small team initiatives. So the people leadership is definitely going to be a unique component because not a lot of MBA applicants this early in their career have formal managerial responsibilities, right? A lot of them have informal leadership, or maybe they've managed interns, but it sounds like this is formal structural reporting lines, which will definitely help this person stand out in the admissions pool. Let's look at extracurriculars. So they founded and currently run a grassroots nonprofit focused on food insecurity and homelessness in a major metro area. Wow, that's impressive. And with a solid volunteer base and clear, measurable community impact. All right, that's great. And I'm glad that he added that, because that's one thing that we see a lot, in particular for busy professionals, is that they're involved in organizations, or maybe they even started something, but the impact isn't necessarily that measurable, or their sort of commitment and long-term impact is a little more fuzzy. Transition into venture capital is their post-MBA goal, and they're specifically looking to pivot into growth equity or late-stage venture capital, ambitious, where they can leverage their tech sales background to help portfolio companies scale their go-to-market and revenue strategies. I actually have a lot of questions about this candidate's career goals, right? Their goal is to transition into venture capital, but they have no investing or finance experience. And of course, I haven't seen their resume, but seemingly no kind of involvement or demonstrated even interest in investing, right? When you think about Harvard and Stanford and programs like that, they are looking for common threads throughout your experience going into your post MBA goals. Help companies scale their go-to-market and revenue strategies. You don't need to go into VC to do that, right? You can join a late-stage startup or a mid-sized firm and do that in-house. Pivot into venture capital right out of business school, unless it's a Stanford, is going to be difficult and honestly just not likely to happen because there's too many other folks that already have investing experience that are going to be competing for those roles. But that said, it's not impossible. There's just going to need to be a stepping stone plan. All right. And their target schools are, of course, Harvard, Stanford, Wharton, Columbia, and NYU Stern. And their big question is, am I completely cooked at the top tier because of my undergraduate GPA? My short answer is no, definitely not cooked because of GPA alone. This candidate absolutely has a lot of potential. I don't think they're punching above their weight class in terms of applying to the schools that are on their list. But they definitely have their work cut out for them in terms of building that story and making sure they're executing on the other parts of the application. And again, the goal is just to lean into the other strengths, right? Lean into your exceptional progression at Google. Lead into the fact that you manage this team and what you've achieved as a manager and as a leader within a large organization like Google. Your recommenders are going to be incredible advocates and play such an important role in your application because they are going to be able to speak to all of those qualities. They'll be able to speak to your work ethic, speak to your creative problem solving, speak about all of these things that are what made you stand out professionally. And that is going to, once again, give the AdCom reason to look past your GPA because your GPA is going to be the least interesting thing about you. I'm wishing you all the best.